Hi, welcome back. So we're at the third part of 3 parts for B1. And the things that we did so far, so you should have still got this sheet. We started with cells over here and we've gone all the way through cells, a little bit of transport, enzymes and digestion, heart and the blood vessels up to respiration because that links to plants, plant structures, transport and photosynthesis, including factors that affect photosynthesis. And I'd have a little look at how greenhouses help that. So now we're into the last bit over here, and this is really all about disease. The whole last section is about disease. There are 3 sections down here. Now, the first section is about communicable diseases. Okay, and the thing about communicable diseases is people always write, when they're asked what that is in the exam, they always write down, you can catch it. So actually, you've got to write a little bit more than that. You can catch it because it's caused by a pathogen. Okay, that can be passed from person to person, animal to animal, or plant to plant. And the pathogens that you need to know about, you need to know about viruses, you need to know about bacteria, and you need to know that a fungus can cause a disease, and then the oddest one is a protist. Okay, you need to know that viruses are smaller than bacteria, much smaller. So these are bigger. And then you've then got to have some idea of the different kinds of disease. So for virus, you need to know that measles is caused by a virus, and we protect ourselves using a vaccination virus. For plants, we need to know about TMV, which is tobacco mosaic virus. Doesn't just affect tobacco plants, it can affect other plants as well, but it's called TMV, the tobacco mosaic virus. And you have to know about HIV. So HIV is human immunodeficiency virus, and it causes the disease AIDS. That's the name of the virus, and it causes the disease AIDS. For bacterial diseases, which are much bigger, you need to know about salmonella. It's salmonella. Okay, that's food poisoning. Essentially, it comes from badly cooked or raw meat, often chicken, and it causes vomiting and diarrhea. You don't normally need to treat salmonella. It goes away after a day or so. And then the other one that now I'm going to have to think carefully before I spell this. Gonorrhea, I think that's spelled correctly. So that's a sexually transmitted disease. And it causes a pussy discharge and pain on urination. Now, bacterial diseases we treat using antibiotics. They only work on bacterial diseases. Common exam question, why can't you treat measles with an antibiotic? Because it's caused by a virus. Antibiotics only work on bacteria. Now for fungus, the one that they want you to know is something called rose black spot. It causes black spots on rose leaves. It passes from plant to plant by touch because the leaves touch each other. It used to be athlete's foot that you had to know about, which I think made much more sense because it was something that people had heard of and understood. And that's a type of fungal infection between your toes. If you have your feet are sweaty quite a lot, or you wash them a lot, and people who have very clean feet get it. So that isn't one you need to know anymore. However, rose black spot. And then for protist, the only one you have to know is malaria. So a protist is a small single-celled organism. It's much bigger than all of these, and it isn't a mosquito that causes malaria. It's a protist that is carried by the mosquito. The mosquito is what we call a vector. It takes the protist from person to person, but it isn't the thing that causes it. It just takes it. So we need to talk about preventing disease. So we talk about disease for prevention down here. So the top of the thing, I mentioned vaccination. You have to know how vaccinations work. Very topical. It's in the news a lot at the moment. So we use that. We can actually use it for a bacteria as well as a virus. It's more common for a viral disease. And what we do is we inject a dead version of the virus or a disabled version of the virus in, and our body learns to make antibodies, and we then become immune. That's the word that is really quite important. We have immunity. We are immune. We need to understand how antibiotics work. They kill bacteria. And we also need to understand painkillers, that all painkillers do is relieve symptoms, but they make us feel better when we have disease. They get rid of the pain. They also some of them get rid of fever. Now you need to know about developing drugs. Again, this is in the news a lot at the moment because people are talking about developing vaccines for COVID. And so there is actually quite a long process to developing a drug because it has to be tested, firstly, for safety. It has to be tested for efficacy. So it actually has to do what it says, and we have to find out what dose is needed. Maybe not quite so much with a vaccine where you either have it or you don't. You need to look up this process. This is a very, very, very common 6-mark question. You need to look at these different stages, why they happen, what people do, and what a double blind is. Okay. If you're doing triple science, you do need to know what a monoclonal antibody is as well. Okay, so I'm just going to put that down the bottom, but that's only if you're doing triple science. But that is very much in the news quite often as well, because that's a really new technique that is being looked at to treat cancer in particular. Okay, so last of all, we've got non-communicable diseases. So this is a disease that is not caused by a pathogen, and it cannot be passed communicable. Right, I'm not very good at spelling, as you might have noticed. Right, now, so these kinds of diseases, we're talking about like things like cancer, heart disease, and lung disease. So like COPD, that means chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Your lungs are in some way obstructed, so you can't breathe properly. You need to link lifestyle factors to these. So a lot of these diseases are, you are more likely to suffer from them. At the top of the list, we have smoking. You need to understand the link between smoking and all 3 of these diseases. It massively increases the risk of each of these diseases. We then have diet. Again, not as important on the top as smoking, but again is linked to all 3 diseases, but more these 2 over here. We then have exercise. The amount of exercise that you do and whether you're overweight, again, is linked to all of these diseases and the likelihood of you suffering from them and how bad that may be later in life. Alcohol comes in as the 4th worst culprit. Alcohol is what's called a carcinogen. That means it is a chemical which causes cancer. And most people in this country drink alcohol because it's socially acceptable. However, one of the things that we need to remember is alcohol in any quantity is actually a dangerous chemical that causes harm, and excessive consumption of alcohol can increase your likelihood of getting certain cancers. So that is the whole of B1. So now you should have structured that out. You should have made some revision flashcards for these things over here, and now you can make revision flashcards for the whole thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is to start to set you some questions to do to see how well this has gone. And I'm going to post that in the masterclass classroom along with these 3 videos.